Hello everybody, my name is Star Raptor and I'm so happy you decided to join me for my spoiler-free review of Star Wars Guardians of the Whills. This is written by Greg Rucka, who also wrote Smuggler's Run as well as Before the Awakening, so he is no stranger when it comes to writing Star Wars. Before I get started with this review, I want to give a very special thank you to the people over at Disney Lucasfilm Press for providing me with this advanced review copy. It is much appreciated. So what is this story all about? Well, it's 230 pages of how Baze Malbus gets his big gun. Well, it sort of is, but there's a lot more to it than that. So this centers around the characters of Chirrut Imwe as well as Baze Malbus, and it is before Saw Gerrera gets there, and it is after the Empire has already occupied the planet. So we actually see how Chirrut Imwe and Baze Malbus kind of react to Saw Gerrera's partisan group kind of coming and causing more havoc than they should with Jedha. It's a story that's basically at its core fleshing out the characters of Baze and Chirrut, and it does that in a really, really good way. And, you know, they are basically like the Robin Hoods of Jedha at this point, because they're stealing from the Empire to get supplies, medical supplies, to give to the less fortunate, because unfortunately, when there are wars, there's a lot of refugees, a lot of people get displaced, their homes get destroyed, and these guys are doing the best they can to kind of bring up the morale, kind of, you know, they are fighting against the Empire because they kind of have to, but they are more doing that in the support of saving the people rather than for, you know, fanatical views. So talking about the things I liked about this novel, first off, I want to talk about the exploration of the Force in general. I mean, honestly, like, this is a young reader novel, yes, but don't let that make you kind of turn the other way, because honestly, not once did I read this novel and think of, oh, this is for kids. Like, there is some deep kind of exploration of the Force, and it's interesting because Jedha is a planet, a place where they have not just one kind of religion that focuses on, you know, the Force. It's more than the Jedi. There's the disciples of the Whills, there's the guardians of the Whills, and there's all these other kind of religious cults. And specifically with Chirrut Imwe's character, it's interesting because he could feel through the Force, and he can kind of know the balance between the light and the dark, and see the darkness in people and the light in people. And, you know, jumping further from that they have different perspectives for each character, so it'll kind of alternate. You'll have a chapter on Baze Malbus, and then you'll have a chapter on Chirrut Imwe, and the Chirrut Imwe chapters were just absolutely phenomenal because he is being described being blind, so you gotta, you know, feel for what he's doing to kind of get through the world, and how he, you know, his perspective on people, and using kind of like, it's so interesting because people have always been like, Chirrut Imwe, is he Force sensitive? Could he be a Jedi? This does a better job of giving us a better notion of that, but it doesn't outright tell us. Not really. I mean, it is basically saying that he could kind of feel different things. He could feel the living Force, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So it's interesting. And jumping off from that, I want to talk about the actual relationship and the humor between Baze and Chirrut. It was just excellent. There were so many points in this novel that I was just laugh out loud. I was just literally, I was like, wow, this is literally like pulled right out of the film. Greg Rucka did an excellent job with kind of building up the rapport of both of those characters for sure. I also did like how every chapter had like a different kind of mantra that was pulled from some kind of poem. Very similar to Thrawn in the beginning. He has those like little journals. It was very similar with that. I like that, how we were getting like the Sith code, and we were getting the Jedi code, and the mantra, you know, the Force is with me, I am one with the Force, kind of things in between, before each chapter was really interesting. Also, with these young reader novels, they actually have these really cool kind of illustrations put in every once in a while to emphasize the action and the importance of such scenes. Another thing I want to talk about is how deep in characters from the Rogue One visual guide this thing is. So you watch Rogue One, you're going to see a lot of these side characters, and they actually get fleshed out a little bit in this novel. So I really enjoyed kind of, when I read Star Wars novels, I kind of have the visual guides kind of nearby, and I'm flipping through the pages saying, oh, that's the guy that was, you know, wearing that thing in the corner of there, kind of thing. So it's pretty fun. And overall, I did enjoy the kind of smaller story, that this was more of a Robin Hood kind of plot for Baze and Chirrut. This is, you know, something that wasn't that large, like a galaxy-spanning adventure. We don't need that all the time with Star Wars, so it's nice to kind of hone in and, like I said, just kind of deep dive into both of these characters that I really, really love. So moving into the things I didn't enjoy about this novel, the first thing I want to talk about is the last 40 or 30 pages of this story. So Greg Rucka kind of changes up his writing style, and we have this climax that is happening, but we keep getting pushed away back into the past to kind of see what happened to spark that event. So it seems to me like it was more of a jagged approach. It kind of ruined the momentum that this story has had going up to this point, because we kept getting pulled back in time and just screwing with the pacing. So I didn't enjoy that. Another thing I didn't enjoy is how they kind of got surface level with the Guardians of the Whills specifically. Like, this novel's called Guardians of the Whills. I wanted to learn a little bit more about the history, the culture, who these people really were, because we still, leaving this novel, I still didn't get a good idea of what Baze and Chirrut were really supposed to be doing there. And finally, one little nitpick was the overuse of dialogue from Rogue One. So there were moments where Baze was like saying, "We need a pilot," or "They destroy our home," or "You're welcome," you know, stuff like that was just like kind of sprinkled too much throughout the novel. I was like, yeah, I've seen Rogue One, I don't need to read this stuff constantly now. So I'm going to give Star Wars Guardians of the Whills a score of 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed this novel, but I don't consider it essential reading for Star Wars fans. If you are fans, though, of Baze and Chirrut, you're going to want to pick this one up. And again, don't be afraid, because it says young reader novel. Anyone of all ages can enjoy this book. It definitely wasn't written like it's just for kids. So I want to hear what you guys thought about Guardians of the Whills, or do you plan on picking it up? Let me know in that comment section below. Also, feel free to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my future content, and it helps me out. I'm Sir After. Thank you for watching, and bye-bye. So, did you like the video? Then make sure you rate it a thumbs up, and if you did that, go over there, hit that Star Raptor head to subscribe to my channel. Doing so will keep you up to speed on all of my latest content. Speaking of which, you can see a couple of my recent uploads down below. I'm also on social media, so what are you waiting for? Let's start nerding out.